Hello everyone. Seeing that we couldn't have the CREW annual workshop this year, we decided to make the presentation available online so you could still see some of the progress that we've had over the last year. So to start off with the CREW team, there was myself of course, and then we had 6 interns last year. Each of the interns had their own projects that they worked on and had an area of focus to monitor last year. So looking at the data that we collected over the last year, in 2019 we submitted 535 site record sheets, and on the species front we collected data on 637 species, which was a fantastic achievement for us, and this was mainly due to the iNaturalist CREW site sheet project that we launched last year. If you look at the breakdown of species per red list category, you can see that in most of the threatened categories, critically endangered and vulnerable, we had some significant increases in the numbers of species that we monitored. And then also a very nice surprise was the number of data deficient species that we managed to record, and this was also mainly due to engaging people that was on iNaturalist. So coming to the iNaturalist site sheet and species sheet project, so last year we developed a system for volunteers to submit their data on iNaturalist. So in the CREW site sheet project we have 837 observations on 418 species, and in the CREW species sheet project we have 1,307 observations with 592 species. And these two projects are connected to each other. The site sheet project has all the data, the habitat data, and the species sheet project has all the species that are connected to that site. So this map shows the distribution of the data, and you can see most of the data has been collected in the Western Cape, and this is where we piloted the project, and mostly coming from the Southern Cape. The Outramps is one of the volunteer groups that have started the pilot of this project. So we've noticed some challenges so far. The species from the same site has been added to both projects, resulting in duplicates. Some of the species sheet observations does not have a corresponding site sheet with the habitat information attached to it, and then keeping track of all the observations that, especially if we're doing multiple sites for the day, this has been quite challenging. We're suggesting that you keep a Excel file with trips and corresponding site sheet references, and this will really help keeping track of what data has been added to iNat already. We will be refining the system, so once the refined system is ready, we will roll out to all the volunteers. So as you know, most of our, or a lot of our work is aligned to the National Plant Conservation Strategy, and there are 2 targets that we particularly engage in Target 5, where we are monitoring the critical habitat species, and these are species that are known from less than 10 kilometers squared. There are 560 species nationally. And in the Cape Floristic region, 453 other species occur in the Cape region. So far we've managed to monitor 150 of those species. Last year we planned trips to monitor 30 of those species, and we found 25 of our targets. These are just 2 examples: Conophytum smurens cadiense, which is known from one farm near Springbok, and Amphithalia rostrata, which is known from one hill slope near Pearly Beach. Then in Target 8, this work is focused on ex situ conservation. We have one pilot project running at the moment, the Marasmodis undulata project, and the aim of this project is to re-establish Marasmodis undulata at Orleans Park in Paarl. The project is funded by the Mohammed bin Zayed Conservation Fund. Last year we received some seeds from the South African Blood Bank. These were seeds that were collected in the 1980s, And because we had no seed bank at that stage, they were stored in the blood bank. We suspect that these seeds were not stored properly, so there was no germination that took place from the seeds. We received viable seeds from the Millennium Seed Bank in the UK, and those will be sown this season. We've engaged with the municipality and the park staff to create awareness of the importance of the site and the species that occurs on the site. We developed a set of posters and pamphlets for distribution in the surrounding community, and hopefully this will inspire people from the local area to get involved in conserving New Orleans Park. And then we've been working quite hard to prepare material for the rehabilitation sites at Orleans, collecting seeds and cuttings and propagating those in the nursery. These are just some photos, some of the seedlings that we've rooted. We had a fantastic season at the Orleans Park with lots of post-fire bulbs coming out, and then we've had also some good interaction with the local schools around the area. Okay, coming down to the C-Team highlights. So I'm only going to share a few of the highlights with you. This is Polygerina nadoense. It was last recorded in 1976 by Peter Goldblatt. We had a special project last year where we went out collecting DNA material and specimens of two genera in particular in the Scrophulariaceae family, the Philopodiums and Polygerinas. So we had a focus on monitoring those species. And on our field trip, we also found another population of Morea patens, which is critically endangered. Then we had a big focus on working in the Northern Cape last year. These are 3 of the target species that was found last year. Conophytum stephani, var stephani. It's only known from one locality in 15 Melberg. Then Gladiolus deserticola, only known from a few locations in the central mountains of the Richtersveld. And the species only comes out after good rain, so it's very rarely seen. And then Oxalis ericifolia. It's only known from one population between Van Reinstorp and Nieuwoudtveld. Then each of the interns had their own particular areas to work on. So these are just some of the highlights from the field trips that they organized. Morea barnardi, it's critically endangered. It's only known from Shaw's Pass, and as the population has been impacted by road construction. Then Secandrus serrata is known from one small population in the Tulbagh Valley, and Dasyspomum perinens, which is a Cape Peninsula endemic, also only known from one subpopulation. Then last year we were alerted to the dramatic increase in succulent plant poaching, especially in the Northern Cape. So we've focused on organizing a few workshops. The first workshop was at the ASF conference, which is an annual conference that brings researchers and conservation officials together that work in the arid regions of the country. Then we organized another detailed stakeholder workshop at Kirstenbosch in February, bringing together some of the key people that are working on the plant poaching issues, like law enforcement and conservation. And the main groups that are being targeted are Conophytums, Avonias, and many other Catosiform species like Monsonias and Adenias. This picture just shows some of the examples of plants that are being traded online, and these are traded on eBay, Facebook, WhatsApp, and the problem is quite huge, and you can see that some of these plants are really old and collected from the wild. So just to give you a quick case study, the Redless team has recently reassessed the Conophytum genus. 12 species has been uplisted to critically endangered. 13 species that was previously listed as least concern has been uplisted to endangered or vulnerable, and a total of 34 species has increased in its redless status. So to end off some future plans that we're thinking of for CREW, we will work closely with Tony Rabello to develop better ways of engaging CREW volunteers on iNaturalist. We've had some good success with getting volunteers to post observations of threatened species and the associated data. So we want to streamline that system even more. We're thinking of a different approach to species targeting. We want to select species to do more extensive surveys on. So if we select one species, we actually want to go and visit all the populations of that species to get a good idea of the status of the population or the entire population. Then we want to start testing the CREW model. For those of you that was at last year's workshop, Don Kirkwood talked a little bit about this, and this is a model that we want to explore by getting citizen scientists involved in growing plants for restoration. And then we want to focus on setting long-term area targets for the CREW team. So selecting 4 or 5 areas of a 10-year period where we do extensive surveys and visit all the natural vegetation fragments within that specific area. And that will give us a much better idea of the threats to the species and also the distribution of threatened plants in that area. And so thank you very much for listening, and we hope that you will keep involved in the CREW program, and if there's any questions, you can email me directly. Thank you very much.